The momentum of Alexandria's golden age carried forward for centuries, but only because such an amazing foundation of intellectual curiosity had been set. This momentum would not continue on its trajectory. It would slow greatly due to disinterest, the center of intellectualism in the West shifting to Rome, and other reasons. The post-Golden Age in Alexandria did have Heron, the inventor of the steam engine, gears, the first vending machines, the thermometer, and who wrote a book on robots. There was Galen, one of history's great physicians, and the first to understand the purpose of the brain. I wonder if Bibliotheca Historica by Diodorus Siculus, who lived 90 BC to 30 BC, wrote a significant part of his work at the library. There is no evidence of this. He spent at least 3 years in Alexandria. His work was a 40-volume effort to tell the history of the known world, including Scythia, the area between Eastern Europe and China, Egypt, Mesopotamia, Arabia, India, Northern Africa, Greece, and Europe. The famed Queen Cleopatra ruled for 21 years as the last ruler of ancient Egypt, and the last, Ptolemy. Ptolemies were educated by the chief librarian of the Library of Alexandria. Cleopatra spoke 9 languages and was impressively academic in most fields. Like all the other Ptolemy rulers, she was fully Greek by nationality. The Rosetta Stone was issued by Ptolemy V in 192 BC, written in ancient hieroglyphics, as well as contemporary Egyptian and Greek. This commemorated Ptolemy V's ascent to the throne. It was an enormous archaeological find found by the French in 1799. Copies circulated around Europe in the interest of understanding ancient hieroglyphics. Since the Rosetta Stone was found, other similar types of early translations were found as well. These were done by the order of the earlier Golden Age Ptolemy kings. Had they been discovered first, or at the same time, they would have been more important than the Rosetta Stone from a historical significance perspective. As Alexandria moved into the 4th and 5th century, events occurred to guarantee its fall. The Serapeum was said to be the most beautiful temple in the known world. It housed part of the library. It had been built in Alexandria's Golden Age. Christians destroyed it, and they would burn a great number of the library's books. Not so different than the Taliban burning books or blowing up 600-foot-high Buddhist statues built during the Gandhara era, or ISIS destroying ancient Assyrian or Roman ruins. ISIS also destroyed churches and many mosques. The mosques were both Sunni and Shia, the 2 denominations of Islam. Just before the end of Alexandria, as an intellectual center, one last scholar, with a mind equal to the greatest of those from antiquity, emerged. The horror of her story echoes throughout history. That is, Hypatia. She excelled beyond her contemporaries as a scientist, mathematician, creator of scientific devices, literary scholar, and philosopher. She was known as a great beauty and lived a virtuous life. Like Hipparchus and Apollonius of Perga, both of the Golden Age, she invented an astrolabe, a small device telling time, latitude, altitude, capable of measuring heights of mountains and widths of rivers. She also created, like Archimedes, a hydrometer for measuring specific densities of liquids. But the tide was changing, and science was increasingly viewed as evil. She was deemed a witch because of her knowledge of science and her engineering of mechanical devices. A Christian mob attacked Hypatia in 415 AD. She was taken to a church, her clothes stripped off, her skin flayed or torn from her body, her limbs were pulled off, eyes gouged out as she was on her last breaths. Her body parts were then burned on the edge of town, symbolic of the city being purified. Her life's works were burned and records of her removed. Her crime was being an intellectual. Such a primitive way of thinking caused a regression of quality of life, understanding, and advancement in any sort. The European influenced world would fall into the Dark Ages a short time after this. It had to. During the Dark Ages, Europe fell far behind much of the world. Several hundred years passed before advances would again be made, but only after much of what had been known disappeared. Less than 1% of the content of Alexandria's books have survived the modern times. Antigone and Oedipus survived, but Sophocles' other books did not. Much of the knowledge of math, physics, the other sciences, and medicine had to be rediscovered, and perhaps we don't even know today all that was known then. Ptolemy I, who ruled 304 to 282 BC, wrote about all that he lived through. He wrote a first-hand account of being with Alexander in their campaign covering the Middle East, Persia, Afghanistan, on to China and parts of India. This is lost. Much of the academic work that preceded the library was also lost here, and in some cases entire areas or subjects of academia also lost. Some of the books survived in archive libraries of churches. Most of what survived was preserved in the Arab world, as it became far more academic than the West during the Middle Ages. The Arab world understood the importance of this knowledge. Europe did not. We have never had something in place to prevent barbaric thinking from prevailing in society, even now. Maybe the biggest contributor to Alexandria falling is that they didn't plan properly for it to continue. Alexandria went from the most open, learned, and advancing city the world had known to falling into a Dark Age mentality in which most of the knowledge and understanding was considered unimportant, the work of the devil, and would be forgotten. There is an element of the American public today that is moving in this direction. If we allow it to grow and prosper, our fate will likely again take us back into the Dark Ages. The next episodes consider where we might be if the golden age of Alexandria had continued. We might very well now be 2,000 years more advanced. Please subscribe and like, and thank you so much for watching.